Life becomes heavy when we try to control what was never in our hands. We want people to behave a certain way, situations to unfold perfectly, and outcomes to match our expectations. When they don't, frustration, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion take over. Most people believe peace comes from fixing the outside world, but Stoic philosophy teaches the opposite. Peace comes from mastering the inner world. Detachment is not about becoming cold, distant, or indifferent. It is about learning where your power ends and where acceptance begins. When you detach from what you cannot control, you stop wasting energy on resistance and start using it for clarity, strength, and self-discipline. This process does not weaken you, it makes you unshakable. In this video, we will explore how to detach yourself from things you can't control, starting with the most important foundation of all, accepting reality. Without resistance, the first and most essential step toward detachment is acceptance, not approval, not surrender. Acceptance simply means recognizing reality exactly as it is, without fighting it mentally. Most emotional suffering does not come from what happens, but from our refusal to accept that it has already happened. When something goes wrong, the mind immediately begins to argue with reality. It says, "This shouldn't have happened, this isn't fair, or if only things were different." This internal resistance creates frustration, anger, and exhaustion. Reality, however, remains unchanged. You lose energy, but the situation stays the same. Stoic philosophy teaches that peace begins the moment you stop demanding life to match your expectations. When you say, "This is what is happening right now," the emotional storm starts to calm. Acceptance removes the illusion that you can undo the past or control every outcome. It brings your attention back to what still remains within your control, your response. Accepting reality does not mean giving up. It means seeing clearly. Once you stop resisting, your mind becomes free to think rationally. You can decide your next move without emotional pressure. Detachment grows because you are no longer emotionally entangled with what cannot be changed. In truth, resistance is what keeps people stuck. Acceptance is what allows growth. When you stop fighting reality, you reclaim your power, and that is where true detachment begins. One of the greatest sources of emotional suffering is confusion about responsibility. We exhaust ourselves trying to manage people, situations, and outcomes that were never ours to control. Detachment begins when you clearly separate what belongs to you from what does not. According to Stoic philosophy, only a few things are truly within your control: your thoughts, your choices, your actions, your effort, and your values. Everything else, other people's emotions, decisions, opinions, reactions, and behaviors, exists outside your authority. When you take responsibility for what is not yours, you create unnecessary emotional burden. Many people believe caring means controlling. In reality, caring means doing your part and letting go of the rest. You can advise someone, support them, or set boundaries, but you cannot force them to change. When you try, frustration follows. Detachment is recognizing that influence is not control. When you draw this mental boundary, emotional clarity appears. You stop blaming yourself for other people's choices. You stop feeling guilty for outcomes you could not prevent. This separation protects your energy and restores your sense of balance. Stoics taught that peace is achieved by focusing on your character, not external events. When you invest your energy in what you can govern, your inner world becomes stable. Regardless of what happens outside, you remain calm even when others are unpredictable. Detachment is not emotional distance. It is responsibility placed in the right direction. By separating what is yours from what is not, you free yourself from unnecessary stress and regain control where it truly matters, within yourself. One of the deepest attachments people struggle to let go of is the need to control outcomes. We believe that if we plan enough, try harder, or worry more, we can guarantee results. But life does not work that way. You can do everything right and still lose. You can give your best and still be misunderstood. This truth is difficult to accept, but essential for detachment. Stoic philosophy teaches that your responsibility ends with effort. Outcomes are shaped by countless factors beyond your control: timing, other people's choices, circumstances, and chance. When you tie your emotional stability to results, you give external forces power over your peace. Anxiety grows because your mind lives in constant anticipation of success or failure. Detachment begins when you shift your focus from results to actions. Instead of asking, "What will happen?" you ask, Am I acting with integrity right now? This change removes fear from action. You stop acting out of desperation and start acting with clarity and confidence. Releasing control over outcomes does not make you careless. It makes you grounded. You still work hard, but you no longer measure your worth by the result. Success becomes something you welcome, not something you depend on. Failure becomes a lesson, not a personal collapse. When outcomes no longer control your emotions, you become mentally resilient. You remain steady in both victory and loss. This emotional balance is a powerful form of detachment, one that allows you to move forward without fear, regret, or bitterness. A major source of unnecessary emotional suffering is the habit of taking everything personally. People act based on their own fears, desires, and limitations, not yours. Yet, when someone criticizes, ignores, or disappoints you, it is easy to interpret it as a reflection of your worth. This is a trap. Detachment begins when you stop making everything about yourself. Stoic philosophy teaches that external events are neutral. It is your judgment that colors them with meaning. Someone's rudeness is a reflection of their mindset, not your value. Someone's rejection or indifference is shaped by their circumstances, not your inadequacy. When you understand this, you protect yourself from absorbing unnecessary emotional pain. Stopping personalization does not mean becoming indifferent or uncaring. It means developing mental clarity and emotional resilience. When you stop internalizing every slight or disappointment, you free your energy to focus on what matters: your own growth, your values, and your actions. By not personalizing, you reduce the power others have over your emotions. You become less reactive and more thoughtful. You respond instead of overreacting. You observe instead of judging. Your mind becomes calmer because it is no longer entangled with every opinion, every decision, every behavior around you. Freedom comes from realizing that your sense of self does not depend on the approval, recognition, or actions of others. When you stop taking everything personally, you begin to live in a space of clarity, balance, and inner strength, the very foundation of detachment. Your mind is constantly generating thoughts, some helpful, some harmful, and many unnecessary. Most people react automatically to every thought, allowing their mind to dictate their emotions and actions. Detachment begins when you learn to observe your thoughts without automatically obeying them. Stoic philosophy teaches that thoughts are not commands, they are impressions. They may influence your feelings, but you always have the power to choose which thoughts you accept and which you let go. When you observe thoughts without reacting, you create mental space, a pause between stimulus and response. This pause is where detachment lives. Uncontrollable situations often trigger anxiety, fear, or imagined disasters. If you follow every thought blindly, you become a prisoner of your mind. But when you step back and watch your thoughts, you gain clarity and control. You start to distinguish between what is real and what is your mind's projection, and your emotional energy is preserved. Detachment does not mean suppressing thoughts or pretending they don't exist. It means creating awareness. You watch, acknowledge, and let them pass without letting them dictate your peace. This awareness weakens the grip of fear, resentment, and worry, allowing calm and rational thinking to take root. When you realize that you are not your thoughts, but the observer of them, you reclaim power over your mind. You stop being pulled in every direction by external circumstances or internal anxieties. Observing your thoughts without obedience is a fundamental step toward emotional freedom and detachment. It allows you to respond consciously rather than react impulsively, building the foundation for inner strength and resilience. Reaction is automatic. Response is deliberate. Most people live their lives reacting to events, letting impulses, emotions, and external pressures control them. Detachment begins when you learn to pause, observe, and choose your response instead of being carried away by immediate emotions. Stoic philosophy teaches that events themselves do not disturb us, our judgments about them do. Every stimulus presents an opportunity. You can react unconsciously and let anger, fear, or frustration take over, or you can respond consciously with calmness, clarity, and purpose. The space between stimulus and response is where freedom exists. Consider a situation where someone criticizes or challenges you. The natural tendency is to react defensively, emotionally, or impulsively, but detachment allows you to pause. In that pause, you evaluate: does my reaction serve me? Does it reflect who I want to be? Choosing a conscious response prevents external events from hijacking your emotional state. This process is not easy. It requires self-awareness, discipline, and practice, but the payoff is profound. Each conscious response strengthens emotional resilience and inner stability. You stop giving power to things outside your control and redirect it toward yourself. Replacing reaction with response transforms every challenging situation into an exercise in mastery. It turns chaos into opportunity, conflict into clarity, and stress into controlled action. Over time, this practice becomes habitual, making you emotionally unshakable, mentally clear, and profoundly detached from outcomes, opinions, and situations beyond your control. Detachment, therefore, is not avoidance or indifference, it is active self. By choosing how you respond, you reclaim control over your mind and your peace, regardless of external circumstances. Life is full of situations that never resolve neatly. People leave without explanations, relationships end without clarity, and events unfold with no sense of justice. Most people wait endlessly for closure, hoping for answers that may never arrive. Detachment begins when you stop waiting for what you cannot control and give yourself the closure you seek. Stoic philosophy teaches that external closure is a luxury, not a necessity. Waiting for someone else to validate your feelings, provide an explanation, or fix a situation gives them power over your emotional state. True freedom comes when you internalize closure, decide to move forward, and stop reliving past disappointments. Accepting that some answers will never come does not mean suppressing your emotions or ignoring reality. It means acknowledging the truth. Life is unpredictable. People act from their own perspectives, and some events are beyond your influence. By embracing this, you release frustration, resentment, and the endless cycle of what-ifs that consume energy and peace of mind. When you take closure into your own hands, you reclaim control over your thoughts, emotions, and direction. You learn to let go without needing permission or validation. This is a profound form of detachment. You stop being emotionally dependent on external circumstances and instead cultivate inner stability. The lesson is clear. Waiting for closure can trap you in the past. Creating your own closure sets you free. It allows you to move forward with clarity, strength, and self-detachment. Is not about indifference, it is about choosing your peace over unresolved situations and relinquishing the need for answers that may never arrive. One of the strongest chains that hold us back from peace is emotional dependency. When our happiness, calmness, or sense of security relies on the actions, approval, or behavior of others, we give them control over our inner world. Detachment begins when you reclaim emotional independence. Stoic philosophy emphasizes that while caring for others is natural and virtuous, attaching your stability to them is dangerous. Dependency creates vulnerability. When others act unpredictably, your emotional state fluctuates. When they disappoint or leave, you experience suffering. Detachment is the conscious choice to care without surrendering your peace. Reducing emotional dependency does not mean shutting down feelings or becoming cold. It is about balance. You can love, support, and invest in relationships without making your well-being contingent upon them. Your calm, strength, and joy are no longer negotiable. They come from within, not from external validation. This shift in perspective empowers you. You stop chasing approval, fearing rejection, or overthinking others' choices. Your mind becomes free to focus on what truly matters: your growth, discipline, and character. Emotional dependency fades because you now recognize that nothing outside yourself can provide lasting security. Detachment in this sense is self-sovereignty. By reducing emotional reliance on others, you cultivate resilience and inner stability. You remain steady even in unpredictable situations. Your peace is maintained not because the world conforms to your desires, but because you have taken ownership of your emotional state. Ultimately, detachment is about freedom. Emotional independence allows you to engage fully in life without being controlled by outcomes or other people's behavior. It is a fundamental step toward mastering yourself and living with clarity, calm, and strength. Most of human anxiety and suffering exists either in the past or the future. We ruminate over mistakes, replay events in our minds, and worry endlessly about what might happen next. Detachment begins when you anchor yourself in the present moment, fully aware of what is happening now. Instead of letting your mind drift into things you cannot change or predict, Stoic philosophy teaches that the present moment is all you truly have. The past is gone, and the future is uncertain. Focusing on what is happening now allows you to act with clarity, calmness, and effectiveness. By directing your attention to the present, you stop giving power to fears, regrets, and imagined scenarios that only exist in your mind. Being present does not mean ignoring planning or foresight. It means giving your full energy and attention to what is actionable at this moment, while not being emotionally enslaved by what is outside your control. The past cannot be rewritten, and the future cannot be guaranteed, but your actions in the present are yours alone. When you practice present moment awareness, the weight of uncontrollable events diminishes. You become more resilient to challenges, less reactive to surprises, and less dependent on outcomes. Your mind remains steady, focused, and grounded, no matter what chaos surrounds you. Detachment through the present moment is a form of inner freedom. It frees you from mental distractions and emotional turbulence. By cultivating this awareness, you maintain control over your mind, preserve your energy, and engage with life in a calm, deliberate, and purposeful way. In short, anchoring yourself in the present transforms how you experience life. You are no longer pulled by past regrets or future anxieties. You are free to act, think, and live in the only moment that truly exists, now. You cannot control life, but you can control yourself. Your thoughts, habits, reactions, and focus are entirely yours. True detachment is not about avoiding life or escaping. Responsibility is about mastering the internal world so thoroughly that external events cannot disturb your peace. Stoic philosophy teaches that freedom comes from inner discipline. While circumstances, people, and outcomes remain unpredictable, your mind, character, and effort are fully within your grasp. By strengthening these areas, you become unshakable, resilient, and calm regardless of what happens around you. Choosing inner discipline means prioritizing what you can influence over what you cannot. It requires consistent practice, observing thoughts, managing impulses, regulating emotions, and aligning actions with values. When you commit to this internal mastery, external chaos loses its power to manipulate your mood or decision-making. This practice transforms every aspect of life. Challenges become opportunities for growth. Criticism becomes a lesson in self-improvement, and uncertainty becomes a space to exercise clarity and patience. By controlling yourself, you remain grounded even when the world is unpredictable. Detachment, in this sense, is not passivity, is active, deliberate self-control. It allows you to engage fully in life, make wiser choices, and maintain peace, no matter what unfolds. Your energy is no longer scattered in trying to control the uncontrollable. It is focused, intentional, and powerful. Ultimately, inner discipline is the foundation of emotional freedom. When you master yourself, you free your mind from fear, frustration, and dependency. You become a steady presence in any situation, embodying the calm, clarity, and strength that true detachment requires. Detachment is not about indifference or coldness. It is about clarity, self-mastery, and freedom from unnecessary suffering. By accepting reality, separating what is yours from what is not, releasing the need to control outcomes, and practicing inner discipline, you reclaim your power and peace. Life will always present challenges beyond your control, but when you detach from them, you maintain your composure, focus, and strength. You act consciously, respond intentionally, and move forward without being dragged by the unpredictable. Remember, detachment is a skill, cultivated over time through awareness, practice, and self-reflection. The more you practice it, the more unshakable you become. Your mind, your peace, and your life are yours to protect. Master these, and nothing outside your control can disturb your calm.